Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The markets of Celestial Station hummed with the cacophony of 100 alien languages. Traders from across 17 star systems haggled over exotic wares, while security drones patrolled overhead, their sensors sweeping methodically through the crowds. It was here, amid this interstellar bazaar, that Ren first saw her. She wasn't like the other Lumari he'd encountered in his 6 years working cargo runs, where they stood tall and proud with their iridescent skin gleaming under the artificial lights. She hunched forward, the luminescence of her blue-tinged epidermis dimmed to a sickly pallor. A neural suppression collar encircled her slender neck, its indicator lights pulsing with cruel regularity. Ren watched as her Dracthan owner yanked her chain, sending her stumbling forward. The massive reptilian merchant barked something in his guttural native tongue, causing nearby shoppers to scatter. No one intervened, no one even looked her way. "Keep moving, human," a station guard prompted, the tentacles on his face writhing with impatience. Market flow must be maintained, but Ren couldn't move. Something about the Lumari woman's eyes, all four of them, held him transfixed. They were the color of distant nebulae, swirling with pinpricks of light like stars being born. And despite her circumstances, there burned within them a defiance that resonated within his core. How much? The words left Ren's mouth before he could consider their implications. The Dracthan turned slowly, vertical pupils dilating as they fixed on Ren. "The merchandise is not for sale," he said in accented common. "She serves an existing contract." Ren knew better than to press. The Galactic Accord of Sentient Commerce had outlawed traditional slavery centuries ago, but indentured servitude flourished throughout the frontier systems. Technically legal, practically slavery, and interfering. With a contract was a quick way to find yourself spaced without a suit. "Just curious," Ren said, forcing nonchalance into his voice. He made a show of examining other wares, but his eyes kept returning to the Lumari woman. When their gazes met again, something passed between them, a wordless communication that transcended their biological differences. In that moment, Ren knew he couldn't walk away. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Back in his quarters aboard the cargo frigate Terran Whisper, Ren couldn't shake the image of those four nebular eyes. The ship wasn't scheduled to depart for another 3 days, time enough to do something profoundly stupid. "Computer, access station database. I need information on Dracthan trading practices and Lumari physiology." "Warning," the ship's AI responded. "Search parameters suggest intent to violate Accord regulations regarding contractual interference." Ren sighed. "Note my objection to that interpretation and proceed anyway." Hours later, surrounded by holographic displays filled with information, Ren knew 3 things with certainty. First, the neural suppression collar was slowly killing the Lumari woman, inhibiting her natural bioenergetic processes. Second, the Dracthan trader named Gorox had a weakness for Terran whiskey, the real stuff, not synthesized. And third, what Ren was planning would likely end with him imprisoned or dead. "Computer, seal personal log," he muttered, standing up and stretching. "And remind me to update my next of kin information." As he gathered what he would need for his insane plan, Ren wondered why he was risking everything for someone he'd never even spoken to. Perhaps it was the stories his grandmother had told him, tales of Earth's ancient history, when humans had fought to free one another from bonds of servitude. Perhaps it was simply that humans had always been terrible at minding their own business. Or perhaps it was those eyes holding galaxies of untold stories that deserved to be free. Dawn's cycle on Celestial Station brought with it the artificial glow of simulated sunrise. Ren moved through the gradually awakening marketplace with purpose, the weight of his decisions settling heavily on his shoulders. In his pack were 6 bottles of authentic Terran whiskey, worth more than 3 months' salary and technically illegal to transport without special permits. The Drakhthan merchant's stall was located in the seedier section of the market, where station security rarely ventured, and surveillance had convenient blind spots. Ren spotted Gorox setting up his wares, the Lumari woman tethered to a post nearby, her luminescent skin dull in the artificial light. "Merchant Gorox," Ren called out, adopting the formal address protocols of Drakhthan culture. "I bring trade, opportunities from Earth." The reptilian's head swiveled, forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "The human returns," he rumbled, massive clawed hands continuing to arrange exotic trinkets. No interest in conversation without profit. Ren smiled thinly and reached into his pack, carefully withdrawing one bottle of amber liquid. The reaction was immediate. Gorox's scales flushed a deeper green, pupils contracting to thin vertical slits of desire. Terran whiskey, aged 25 years in oak barrels. Not replicated. Ren turned the bottle so light caught the liquid. Inside. "I have 6 bottles." The Drakhthan was still for a moment, ancient instincts warring with mercantile cunning. "What does the human want in exchange? Credits? Quantum crystals? Weapons?" "Her." Ren nodded toward the Lumari woman, who had gone completely still, all 4 eyes fixed on the transaction unfolding before her. Gorox made a sound between a hiss and a laugh. "The Lumari is bound by contract for 18 more cycles. Breaking." "Such contracts is possible with the right compensation," Ren interrupted. 6 bottles, Gorox. Even on the Central Worlds, this would buy you a small shuttle. The penalties can be officially recorded as contract fulfillment through alternate compensation. We both know the Accord inspectors can be persuaded to look the other way. Ren leaned forward. 6 bottles, legal transfer, no questions. Gorox's vertical pupils dilated and contracted rapidly, a sign of intense calculation in his species. He moved closer, lowering his voice. 8 bottles. 7, Ren countered, and I'll need the control code for her suppression collar. The marketplace continued its bustle around them, oblivious to the transaction that would change 3 lives forever. After what seemed like an eternity, Gorox extended a scaled hand. 7 bottles. Transfer documents will record full contract fulfillment through compensatory payment. The Drakhthan's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. A pleasure. Doing business with humans, you always pay too much. 30 minutes later, Ren stood in a dingy corridor near the lower docking bays, facing the Lumari woman who was legally now his property. Her luminescent skin pulsed with uncertain patterns of light, all 4 eyes warily tracking his movements. "My name is Ren," he said softly, holding out a small electronic key. "This will remove your collar. I'm not your new owner. Once it's off, you're free to go wherever you want." She stared at him uncomprehendingly. "Free," he repeated, making a spreading gesture with his hands. "No more contract, no more Gorox." When understanding finally dawned in those nebula eyes, the pattern of light beneath her skin changed to something Ren couldn't interpret. She reached for the key with trembling 6-fingered hands. "Be careful," Ren warned. "It might—" The collar clicked open before he could finish his warning, and the Lumari woman collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing as neural connections suddenly freed from suppression, misfired all at once. Ren dropped to his knees beside her, panic rising in his throat. "Help!" he shouted, looking frantically around the empty corridor. "I need a medic!" But as suddenly as they had begun, the convulsions stopped. The Lumari woman lay still, her skin now pulsing with brilliant patterns of blue and purple light. When she opened her eyes, all 4 of them focused on Ren with startling clarity. "My name," she said in perfect, unaccented common, "is Ilara." Her voice had a musical quality like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "And you have just made yourself a very dangerous enemy." "We need to move," Ilara said, rising to her feet with a fluid grace that belied her earlier condition. Her skin rippled with cascading patterns of light, like information flowing visibly through her body. "Gorox will realize his mistake soon." "Enough!" Ren stared at her, confusion evident on his face. "Mistake? I paid him fair and square." A sound emerged from Ilara that might have been laughter, though it resonated at a frequency that made the hairs on Ren's arms stand up. Gorox didn't own me, human. I was his prisoner. The Drakthon Mercantile Guild has a bounty on my capture worth 50 times what you paid. The implications hit Ren like a gravity hammer. You're wanted? For what? Knowledge, she replied, her 4 eyes scanning the corridor with tactical precision. I was a keeper of memories for the Lumari Collective. Before my capture, I accessed restricted archives containing information about something the Drakthons wish to keep hidden. She turned her gaze fully on Ren. Something about humans. A shrill alarm suddenly blared throughout the station, red emergency lights painting the corridor in crimson hues. Attention all personnel, an automated voice announced. Security breach in Sector 7. Dangerous fugitive escaped custody. Human and Lumari targets approach with extreme caution. Ren swore under his breath. My ship is 3 levels up. We'll never make it through the security checkpoints now. Ilara's skin pulsed with rapid calculations. There's another way. Maintenance shafts. Droids use them to service the station's outer hull. She pointed to a nearly invisible seam in the wall. There. With surprising strength, she pried open the panel, revealing a narrow tunnel dimly lit by emergency strips. After you, Liberator. Ren hesitated only briefly before climbing in. The shaft was barely wide enough for his shoulders, forcing him to crawl awkwardly as Ilara followed, pulling the panel closed behind them. How did you know about these passages? Ren asked as they navigated the claustrophobic space. Lumari can communicate with certain mechanical systems, she explained. The station's maintenance droids shared their pathways with me. They're simple intelligences, but kind in their way. They continued in silence for several minutes, the distant sound of alarms growing fainter. Ren's mind raced with questions, but survival took priority. Finally, they reached a junction where the shaft widened enough to sit up. Why me? Ren asked, turning to face her in the dim light. Of all the beings in that marketplace, why connect with me? Ilara's skin dimmed slightly, her expression becoming unreadable. Because you're human, and what I discovered in the archives concerns the true origin of your species. Before Ren could process this revelation, a metallic screech echoed through the shaft behind them. Ilara's skin flashed with alarm patterns. Security droids, she whispered. They've overridden the maintenance units. How far to my ship? Ren asked, already moving again. 2 more junctions, then up 1 level, Ilara replied, her voice tight with urgency. But we have another problem. Your vessel will surely be under surveillance. Ren allowed himself a small smile. Actually, I'm counting on that. They reached the final junction, just as the sounds of pursuit grew dangerously close. Above them, a hatch led to the main docking level. Ren paused, listening intently before pushing it open a crack. Through the narrow opening, he could see his ship, the Terran Whisper, surrounded by station security, a mix of drones and armed guards. Standard procedure would be to wait for the captain to return, then make the arrest with minimal disruption to station operations. Do you trust me? Ren whispered to Ilara. Her 4 eyes studied him intently, nebulae swirling in their depths. I have no logical reason to do so. Yet here we are, Ren countered. After a moment, her skin pulsed with what might have been resignation. What's the plan? When I give the signal, get ready to run for the ship. Head straight for the cargo. Ramp! Ren pulled a small device from his pocket, a remote transmitter linked to systems aboard the Whisper. And whatever happens, don't stop. Before she could respond, Ren pressed the transmitter. Immediately, alarms blared from his ship, emergency lights flashing as the vessel's external defense systems activated, a captain's last resort against hijackers. Now! Ren shoved the hatch open and pushed Ilara through, following close behind as chaos erupted across the docking bay. The Terran Whisper's defensive countermeasures filled the docking bay with disorienting strobe lights and sonic pulses calibrated to incapacitate most known sentient species. Station security forces scattered, their coordinated formation dissolving. Into confusion, as sensory overload protocols took effect. Ren grabbed Ilara's hand and sprinted toward the ship, his ears ringing, despite the protective subdermal implants all human spacers received during basic training. Around them, security drones spiraled erratically, their guidance systems scrambled by the electromagnetic interference. "Your access codes won't work," Alara shouted over the cacophony. "They'll have locked down your ship remotely." Ren didn't waste breath responding. Instead, he veered toward what appeared to be a solid section of the Whisper's hull. Pressing his palm against the seemingly featureless metal, he whispered something inaudible, even to Alara's sensitive hearing. A seam appeared where none had been visible before, widening into an emergency access port, a smuggler's modification, unregistered in any official documentation. In. Ren pushed Alara through the narrow opening, diving in after her as weapons fire began to cut through the confusion. The port sealed instantly behind them, plunging them into momentary darkness before emergency lighting activated. They found themselves in a cramped maintenance crawlspace between the ship's outer hull and the cargo hold's interior wall. Ren moved with practiced ease through the tight confines, guiding Alara toward the bridge. "Manual override," he explained as they crawled. "The ship's AI is programmed to recognize certain stress patterns in my voice. When I triggered the countermeasures, it also initiated emergency protocols, including unlocking this accessway." "Clever," Alara conceded, her skin pulsing with what might have been approval. "But we're still trapped in a docking bay with security forces surrounding us." Ren emerged from the crawlspace into the bridge, sliding into the pilot's seat with fluid efficiency. His fingers danced across the control interfaces, bypassing standard startup procedures. Computer, execute protocol breakaway, authorization Ren Alpha 6, Echo. The ship's systems flared to life, displays lighting up with warning, messages about unauthorized departure procedures and potential structural damage. Outside, metallic thuds indicated security forces attempting to breach the main airlock. "Warning," the ship's AI announced. "Protocol breakaway will result in significant damage to station docking mechanisms and potential criminal charges under Accord regulations." "Noted," Ren replied grimly. "Execute anyway." Alara strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, her four eyes widening as understanding dawned. "You're going to tear us free? The docking clamps are designed to withstand standard engine output." Ren finished for her, engaging the ship's power core. "Which is why we're not using standard output." With a series of rapid commands, Ren diverted power from life support, artificial gravity, and non-essential systems to the main engines. The Whisper shuddered as its thrusters surged beyond safety limitations. "Brace yourself," Ren warned, gripping the manual flight controls. "This is going to hurt." The ship lurched violently as the engines fired at maximum capacity. Metal screamed against metal as the docking clamps struggled to retain their hold. Warning klaxons blared throughout the vessel, structural integrity alerts flashing across every display. For 3 agonizing seconds, the Whisper remained trapped. Then, with a final metallic shriek, the docking clamps gave way. The sudden release sent the ship hurtling forward, nearly colliding with the bay's containment field, before Ren wrestled the controls into submission. "Station defense systems activating," the AI warned. "Tracking weapons coming online." "Divert remaining power to shields," Ren ordered, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that stressed the ship's frame to its limits. "And prepare for emergency. Jump as soon as we clear the station's gravity well." Station defense batteries opened fire, energy pulses streaking past as the Whisper zigzagged away from the massive structure. Each near miss illuminated the bridge in flashes of artificial lightning. "They're not trying to destroy us," Alara observed, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Disabling shots only." "They want you alive," Ren replied through gritted teeth, pulling the ship into a desperate roll to avoid another barrage, "which gives us exactly one advantage." The Whisper shuddered as a glancing hit connected with its aft section. Secondary systems failed across the board, but the engines continued their desperate burn toward open space. "Jump coordinates locked," the AI announced. "Warning coolant leak in engine compartment. Emergency jump not recommended." "Override safety protocols," Ren commanded, his eyes fixed on the countdown timer. "Prepare to jump in 3, 2, 1. Space folded around them as the jump drive engaged, stars stretching into lines of light before collapsing into the swirling chaos of hyperspace. The final image on their view screen was of Celestial Station, receding into the distance, a dozen pursuit vessels scrambling to follow. Then they were elsewhere, the gentle hum of hyperspace replacing the cacophony of battle. Ren slumped in his chair, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming him. "We made it," he breathed, turning toward Ilara. She regarded him with an unreadable expression, her luminescent skin pulsing with complex patterns. "For now," she said softly, "but they will never stop hunting us. And you still don't understand what you've gotten yourself involved in." Ren managed a weary smile. "Why don't you enlighten me?" The emergency lighting cast soft blue shadows across the bridge as Ren worked to reroute power from damaged systems. 3 hours into their hyperspace journey, the Terran Whisper limped along at reduced capacity, its hull bearing the scars of their harrowing escape. Ilara watched him work, her luminescent skin pulsing with subtle patterns that reflected her thoughts. She had removed the tattered servant's garments Gorox had forced her to wear, replacing them with a standard ship suit from Ren's storage locker. Despite being too large for her slender frame, the simple clothing gave her a dignity that transformation alone could not provide. "Your ship needs medical attention," she observed, running 6-fingered hands along a damaged console. "The jump drive is operating at 60% efficiency, and life support is cycling through emergency reserves." Ren glanced up from his repairs. "How can you tell?" In response, Ilara placed her palm flat against the ship's main interface. Her skin brightened where it contacted the surface, patterns of light flowing from her arm into the console. The ship's systems flickered momentarily before stabilizing, damaged displays suddenly clearing. "Lumari evolved alongside sentient machinery," she explained. "We don't merely communicate with technology, we commune with it. Your ship is in pain." Ren set down his tools, wiping grime from his hands. "You said you had information about humans. Information worth killing for." He settled into the captain's chair, facing her directly. "I think I've earned the right to hear it." Ilara's 4 eyes focused on him with unsettling intensity. "What do your people believe about their origins?" Ren shrugged. "Standard evolutionary theory. We evolved on Earth, developed spaceflight, encountered other sentient species, and joined the galactic community. Nothing particularly special about it. And yet humans achieved faster-than-light travel only 8 centuries ago, but within 300 years had established colonies throughout 2 spiral arms," Ilara countered. "No other species has adapted so quickly to space. Have you never wondered why?" An uneasy feeling crept down Ren's spine. Necessity breeds innovation. Earth was becoming uninhabitable. "A convenient explanation," Ilara said, her voice gentle. "The archives I accessed contained records dating back 30,000 years. They tell a different story." She rose and moved to the view screen, where hyperspace swirled in psychedelic patterns outside. "Humans are not native to Earth." Ren started to object, but Ilara raised a hand, silencing him. "Your ancestors were seeded there, genetically modified and placed on a world specifically chosen for its isolation," she continued. "You were designed as weapons in a war so ancient that even my people have forgotten its origin." "That's absurd," Ren scoffed, but doubt had already taken root. "We have a complete fossil record, evolutionary biology that was manufactured," Ilara interrupted. "The architects were thorough. They wanted their creations to believe they had evolved naturally until the time for activation came." "Activation?" The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Ilara's skin dimmed with what might have been sadness. Humans possess genetic sequences unlike any natural evolution, dormant abilities, embedded within your DNA, designed to awaken under specific conditions. The Drakhthan Mercantile Guild discovered this secret and has been systematically eliminating anyone with knowledge of it. "Why?" Ren asked, struggling to process her claims. "Because human potential terrifies them." Ilara's eyes swirled with emotion. "The sequences are beginning to activate naturally, something the architects never anticipated. Within a few generations, humans will develop abilities that could shift the balance of power across the galaxy." The ship's alert system chose that moment to interrupt, a proximity warning flashing across the main console. Ren turned to check the readings, his mind still reeling from Ilara's revelations. "We've got company," he announced grimly. "Multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace. On an intercept course. Drakhthan configuration." Ilara moved swiftly to the co-pilot station. "They've tracked us through the jump signature," Impossible, Wren muttered, initiating evasive protocols. Unless... He paused, a horrifying realization dawning. Dropping beneath the navigation console, he pried open an access panel and reached inside. When his hand emerged, it held a small metallic device pulsing with a faint red light. Tracker, he confirmed, crushing the device beneath his boot. But it's too late. They've already found us. The view screen shifted as the whisper dropped, out of hyperspace, revealing the ominous silhouettes of 3 Dracthan hunter ships arrayed before them, weapons primed. We can't outrun them, Wren said, mind racing through limited options. And we're in no condition to fight. Ilara studied the tactical display, her skin pulsing with rapid calculations. There's another option. She pointed to a nearby stellar phenomenon, a dense nebula composed of ionized gases and cosmic debris, the Veil of Ashkara. Its properties disrupt most scanning technologies. And most navigation systems, Wren added. Flying blind in there would be suicide. Ilara's eyes, fixed on his, nebulae swirling in their depths. Not for me. Remember what I told you about communing with technology? I can guide your ship through the veil, if you trust me. A warning shot flashed past the view screen, the Dracthan vessels moving to surround them. Last chance for surrender, a guttural voice announced over the communication system. Return the Lumari, and the human may live as property rather than die as ash. Wren met Ilara's gaze, making his decision. Computer, transfer helm control to the auxiliary interface. He nodded to Ilara. Show me what you can do. As Ilara placed her hands on the interface, her entire body illuminated with brilliant patterns. The ship responded immediately, systems aligning with her bioluminescent pulses as they surged toward the swirling chaos of the nebula. Behind them, the Dracthan vessels opened fire in earnest. The Terran Whisper plunged into the Veil of Ashkara like a diver, entering murky waters. Outside the viewports, swirling gases in shades of crimson and violet engulfed the ship, reducing visibility to near zero. Static crackled across communication systems as the nebula's charged particles interfered with all electromagnetic signals. Ilara had become one with the ship. Her luminescent skin pulsed in complex patterns that matched the rhythm of the vessel's systems, eyes closed in deep concentration. As she navigated by senses Wren couldn't comprehend, under her guidance, the Whisper moved with impossible precision through the cosmic fog. Proximity alert, the ship's AI announced, its voice fragmented by interference. Pursuing vessels have entered the nebula, tracking systems compromised, unable to provide exact locations. Wren monitored what few functional sensors remained. They're spreading out, trying to flank us. He glanced at Ilara, her face serene despite the danger. Can you sense them? Not directly, she replied without opening her eyes. But I can feel disturbances in the nebula's currents. Her hands shifted minutely on the controls, sending the ship into a gentle dive. Moments later, energy weapons fire passed through the space they had just vacated. How are you doing this? Wren asked, genuine wonder in his voice. A faint smile touched Ilara's lips. The veil is alive in its way. Ancient energy patterns flow through it like thoughts through a mind. I'm simply listening. The ship banked sharply as Ilara guided them deeper into the nebula. Here, massive formations of cosmic dust created a labyrinth of naturally occurring tunnels and chambers. The pursuing Dracthan vessels fell further behind, their rigid programming and conventional sensors inadequate for navigation in this chaotic environment. We're losing them, Wren confirmed, watching the distance increase on his tactical display. Relief began to build within him until a massive shape loomed suddenly in their path. Obstacle, he shouted, instinctively reaching for the controls. No, Ilara said calmly, maintaining her course. Sanctuary. As they drew closer, the shape resolved into an enormous structure partially embedded in a dust cloud, clearly artificial yet ancient beyond reckoning. Curved surfaces of unknown material reflected the nebula's light in hypnotic patterns, creating the illusion of movement across its hull. What is it? Wren whispered, awe overwhelming his anxiety. A Lumari seed ship, Ilara explained, guiding them toward what appeared to be a docking aperture. one of many scattered throughout the galaxy thousands of years ago. Most were lost or forgotten, but their locations remain encoded in the collective memory of keepers. The aperture irised open as they approached, responding to some silent communication from Ilara. The whisper slipped inside, and the opening sealed behind them, cutting off the chaotic beauty of the nebula. They had entered a vast chamber, bathed in soft bioluminescent light, similar to Ilara's skin patterns. The artificial gravity adjusted automatically to Earth standard as automated systems awakened from millennia of dormancy. "Welcome, descendants," a melodic voice echoed throughout the ship. "The sanctuary recognizes the presence of a keeper and extends protection." Ilara finally released the controls, her luminescence dimming as she severed the deep connection with the Whisper's systems. She slumped forward, exhaustion evident in her posture. Ren moved quickly to support her. "Are you all right?" "The communion requires energy," she explained. Her voice weakened. "I will recover." Her four eyes gazed up at him with unexpected vulnerability. "But you should prepare yourself." "For what?" "For truth," she replied simply. "The sanctuary's archives contain unaltered records of human origins. What I told you earlier was just the beginning." After ensuring the Whisper was secure in its docking cradle, they ventured into the ancient vessel. The corridors pulsed with living light, responding to Ilara's presence as they traversed deeper into the structure. Ren felt as though they walked through the circulatory system of some vast organism rather than a conventional spacecraft. They reached what appeared to be a central chamber, dominated by a column of swirling light that extended from floor to ceiling. As Ilara approached, tendrils of energy reached out toward her, connecting with the luminescent patterns beneath her skin. "This is the memory core," she explained, her strength returning as she connected with the ancient system. "It contains the accumulated knowledge of my people from before the Sundering." "The Sundering?" Ren asked, keeping a respectful distance from the energy column. "A cataclysmic war that fractured our civilization 11,000 years ago," Ilara replied, her voice taking on a formal cadence as she accessed the archives. "A war that led to the human project." The column of light expanded suddenly, enveloping them both in a sphere of energy. Within this bubble, three-dimensional images formed: star maps, anatomical diagrams, genetic sequences, and historical records flowing around them in dizzying abundance. "Behold your true heritage," Ilara said softly. Before Ren could respond, the pursuing Dracthan vessels struck the sanctuary with concentrated weapons fire, the impact reverberating through the ancient structure like thunder. The sanctuary shuddered under the Dracthan assault, ancient defense systems activating after millennia of dormancy. Within the memory core, the holographic display flickered as power diverted to protective shields. "They found us," Ren stated, grimly, steadying himself against a console as another impact rocked the structure. Ilara's skin pulsed with rapid patterns of agitation. "Impossible! The veil should have hidden us completely." "Unless they weren't tracking the ship," Ren realized, a cold knot forming in his stomach. "What if they were tracking you?" Understanding dawned in Ilara's four eyes. The suppression collar, it must have contained more than neural inhibitors. Her hands moved to her neck where the device had been. A quantum-entangled tracker that remained active even after removal. Another explosion, closer this time. The memory core flickered more severely, ancient systems struggling to distribute power between defenses and vital functions. "The sanctuary cannot withstand a prolonged assault," Ilara said, turning back to the swirling column of data. "We have little time. You must receive the knowledge now." "Receive how?" Ren asked, apprehension mixing with determination. In answer, Ilara took his hands, guiding them into the light column. The memory core was designed to interface with certain neural patterns, including those hidden within human DNA. As his fingers penetrated the swirling energy, Ren felt a tingling sensation spreading up his arms. "Is this safe?" "No," Ilara admitted with brutal honesty. "But neither is ignorance." The tingling intensified, becoming a burning that raced through his nervous system. Ren cried out, instinctively trying to pull away, but Ilara held him firmly. Don't fight it, she urged. Accept what you are. Images flooded Ren's consciousness, not merely seen but experienced, as though he had lived them himself. He witnessed the ancient civilization that had created humanity, their desperate war against an enemy whose name had been deliberately erased from history. He felt the ethical debates among the creators, some arguing against using an engineered species as weapons, others insisting it was necessary for survival. He saw Earth selected from countless worlds for its isolation and compatible biosphere. Watched as genetically modified humans were seeded there, programmed to evolve along specific paths, their true potential locked behind genetic barriers designed to dissolve only when specific cosmic conditions were met. Those conditions had arrived 3 generations ago. The stellar alignment, Ren gasped, new understanding burning through him. The radiation burst from the Cygnus supernova. Activated sequences that had lain dormant for 30,000 years, Ilara confirmed, her voice seeming to come from both inside and outside his mind. Humans born after that event carry fully activated genetic potential. Your grandchildren will be something new to the galaxy. A final, devastating impact rocked the sanctuary. Warning signals flashed throughout the chamber. A structural integrity failed in multiple sections. Warning, an automated voice announced. Containment breach in sectors 4 through 7. Core destabilization imminent. Emergency protocols activated. The energy column surrounding them pulsed erratically, the transfer speeding up as though the system itself knew time was running out. Ren's body convulsed as information continued flooding into his mind, knowledge never meant for. A single consciousness to contain. Too much, he gasped, his neural pathways burning with overload. I can't. You can, Ilara insisted, her own body now glowing with intensity that matched the core. This is what you were designed for. Something shifted within Ren's consciousness, a barrier dissolving, a lock opening. Suddenly the pain transformed into clarity unlike anything he had ever experienced. Every cell in his body hummed with newfound awareness. The knowledge ceased to be foreign and became part of him, integrated into his very being. The memory core dimmed suddenly, power fluctuations causing the holographic displays to collapse. Ilara pulled Ren clear as energy arcs crackled across the chamber. We must reach your ship, she said urgently. The sanctuary is initiating self-preservation protocols. It will withdraw deeper into the veil where the Drachthans cannot follow. They raced through corridors now pulsing with warning. Patterns, the living architecture of the ancient vessel shifting around them as sections sealed off or reconfigured. Twice they had to detour around collapsed passages, the sanctuary's damage more extensive than they had initially realized. What happens if we don't reach the Whisper in time? Ren asked as they navigated the increasingly unstable environment. The sanctuary will take us with it, Ilara replied, into a state of temporal suspension that could last centuries. They reached the docking bay just as another explosion rocked the structure. The Terran Whisper remained secure in its cradle, though warning lights flashed across its hull, indicating damage from the concussive force of nearby impacts. As they sprinted toward the ship, a section of the ceiling collapsed behind them, nearly crushing Ilara. Ren moved with supernatural speed, pulling her clear with strength he hadn't possessed moments before. The changes are already beginning, she observed, her 4 eyes widening with something between awe and concern. Ren had no time to contemplate this transformation. They boarded the Whisper amidst increasing chaos, the sanctuary's systems failing. Around them, as the ancient vessel prepared for its defensive withdrawal. Manual override, Ren commanded as they reached the bridge. Disengage docking clamps and prepare for emergency departure. The ship's AI responded instantly, ancient Lumari technology releasing its hold on the human vessel. Through the viewports, they could see the Drachthon ships continuing their assault, energy weapons carving glowing furrows across the sanctuary's outer hull. They haven't spotted us yet, Ren observed, powering up the Whisper's engines. The sanctuary's still absorbing their attention. Not for long, Ilara warned. Once it begins its transition, they'll detect our energy signature. The docking aperture irised open before them, revealing the swirling chaos of the nebula beyond. Ren guided the ship forward with perfect precision, his enhanced awareness allowing him to perceive currents in the cosmic dust invisible to normal human senses. Behind them, the sanctuary began to shimmer with energy, its structure becoming translucent. As it prepared to shift into another dimensional state, the pursuing Dracthan vessels, realizing their target was escaping, ceased their assault and turned their attention toward the fleeing Whisper. "They're locking weapons," Ilara reported, monitoring the tactical display. Rather than fear, Ren felt only crystalline clarity. His hands moved across the controls with fluid confidence, guiding the ship into the densest part of the nebula where energy discharges would be dispersed by the ionized particles. "Hold on," he instructed, executing. A maneuver that would have been impossible for him mere hours ago. The Whisper dove into a narrow channel between dust formations, accelerating to dangerous speeds, given the limited visibility. The Dracthan hunters attempted to follow, but lacked both the piloting skill and the intuitive understanding of the nebula's patterns that Ren now possessed. One vessel clipped a dust formation, sending it spinning into its companion. Neither was destroyed, but the collision bought precious seconds. "We need to reach the edge of the veil," Ren said, his voice calm despite their desperate flight. "I can get us to hyperspace from there." Ilara studied him with new appreciation. "You've changed." "I've awakened," he corrected, navigating another treacherous section of the nebula with impossible precision. "And I finally understand why the Dracthans fear us so much." 6 months later, the Terran Whisper drifted in high orbit above a small unremarkable planet in the outer reaches. From this distance, the world appeared as a blue-green jewel against the velvet black of space, its single small moon tracing a lazy path around the equator. On the bridge, Ren and Ilara stood side by side, watching the planet's slow rotation through the view screen. Both had changed since their escape from the Veil of Ashkara. Ren's physique had subtly altered, taller, more defined, with eyes that now held faint luminescence visible in darkness. Ilara's skin displayed more complex patterns, her connection to the ship's systems now so complete that she rarely needed to use conventional interfaces. "Are you certain about this?" she asked, her melodic voice carrying concern. "Once we begin, there's no turning back." Ren nodded, his expression resolute. "The knowledge must be shared. 3 generations of humans have been born with active sequences. They deserve to know what they are, what they can become." The planet below was New Terra, one of humanity's earliest colony worlds. Remote enough to avoid immediate Dracthan attention, yet connected enough to spread information throughout human space. Since their escape, Ren and Ilara had worked tirelessly, compiling the ancient knowledge from the memory core into a form humans could understand. It had been dangerous work. Twice they had narrowly evaded Dracthan hunter ships, and once they had been forced to abandon a safe harbor when bounty hunters traced their location. But now, the work was complete. A data package, containing humanity's true history, waited in the Whisper's communication array, ready for transmission to the colony below. "The Dracthans will respond with violence," Ilara warned, though they had discussed this many times before. "They've suppressed this knowledge for millennia. They won't surrender their advantage easily. Which is why we won't be here when they arrive," Ren replied. He gestured toward the navigation display where a course had already been plotted. "The coordinates you recovered from the sanctuary, the gathering place for awakened humans." Ilara's 4 eyes studied him with the swirling nebulae that had first captivated him in the marketplace so many months ago. "And if no one else has found it, if we're the first, then we'll be the foundation." Ren took her 6-fingered hand. In his, the gesture now familiar and comforting. The beginning of something new. Their relationship had evolved beyond rescuer and rescued, beyond human and alien. They had become something unique in the galaxy, representatives of 2 species, united by a common purpose and a shared understanding that transcended biological differences. "Transmission ready," the ship's AI announced. Ren took a deep breath, aware of the historical significance of this moment. "Send it." The communication array pulsed, sending tight beam transmissions to 6 different receivers on the planet below. From there, the information would spread across human space through channels Ren had established, using contacts from his smuggling days. By the time the Dracthans realized what had happened, it would be too late to contain. "It's done," Ilara confirmed, her skin pulsing with patterns that Ren had learned to recognize as satisfaction. The Whisper's engines hummed to life as Ren engaged the navigation sequence. Time to disappear. As the ship accelerated away from New Terra, Ren reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It had begun with a simple act of compassion, one human unwilling to walk past suffering. Now it had become something that would reshape galactic civilization. The stars seemed brighter somehow as they prepared for the jump to hyperspace, as though the universe itself approved of what they had set in motion. Humanity would face challenges. In the coming years, the Dracthan response would be swift and merciless, but they would face those challenges with newfound knowledge of their true potential. The architects never anticipated this outcome, Ilara observed, watching the final preparations for the jump. They created humans as weapons, but you've chosen to become something more. We've chosen, Ren corrected, emphasizing their partnership. And that's the one thing no designer could program: choice. The hyperspace engines engaged, reality folding around them as the Terran Whisper vanished from normal space. In the swirling dimension beyond, Ren reached for Ilara's hand once more, his enhanced senses perceiving the beautiful complexity of her luminescent patterns. They were fugitives, revolutionaries, perhaps even the vanguard of a new epoch in galactic history. But in this moment, they were simply two beings who had found each other across the void of space and chosen to stand together against the darkness. Behind them, on countless worlds, humans would soon awaken to their inheritance. Before them lay an uncertain future, but one they would face together, one light year at a time. The stars awaited,